Students, you know that the work measurement is one of the important techniques of the work study, and this work measurement technique is mainly used to quantify the work content related with a job in terms of the standard time required to carry out that job, and also to investigate the presence of ineffective time if it is there, and its extent. So, determination of the ineffective time helps to find out the venues where improvement can be done by method study, and the setting of standard of performance helps in proper production planning, developing the wage and incentive plans, and a number of estimations and forecastings. Setting of the time standard is done using the 4 techniques mainly, and these are the time study, work sampling, predetermined motion time study, and the standard data method. In the time study is one of the most commonly used work measurement technique, in which the time study man quantifies the time required to carry out the job by an average qualified worker using the stopwatch, and the time observed time in carrying out the job determined by the time study man is normalized using the performance rating factor and adding the allowances. So, for arriving at the performance rating of the worker and determining the percentage of the allowance which should be added to arrive at the standard time, we should look into the detail. The performance rating of the worker which is carrying out a particular job for the time study is an important step, because it helps to quantify the speed at which worker is working and following the standard method which is expected during the operation. So, the time study engineer carefully observes the performance of operator during the work, and this performance actually is normally found always different from what is according to the normal or standard performance. The performance of the actual operator seldom conforms to the normal or standard performance, and therefore, it becomes necessary to apply some adjustment factor by the time study man, so as to find out the average time which a normal operator will take to do the same job, and this adjustment factor is termed as performance rating. The determination of the performance rating therefore is an important step in work study, because it helps to find out the rate at which a worker will work during the study, and that is used to quantify and find out the standard time required for carrying out the job, and the same is expected to be done by the other workers. This step is most subjective, and that is why it is frequently subjected to the criticism of the operator, because the performance rating being given by the time study man solely depends upon his experience and his expertise related to the work which is being investigated. So, because of its subjective nature, it is subjected to the criticism also, because the performance rating largely given by the time study man depends on the experience, training, and the judgment of the work study man. The rating factor or the performance rating is defined as the procedure in which time study engineer compares the performance of operator under the observation to the normal performance, and that is used to determine the rating factor. So, what is the working speed of the worker, and what is the performance, normal performance expected from the worker? These two are compared to arrive at a rating factor. So, the different methods have been developed over a period of time to find out the rating factor for an operator during the time study, and these are known as the pace rating, Westinghouse system of rating, objective rating and a synthetic rating. Pace rating is about the speed at which worker applies himself for carrying out the particular job, while Westinghouse system of the rating considers the skill of the operator, the pace at which he is working, the kind of conditions in which he is working and the consistency which is being shown by the operator during the work, while the objective rating includes the pace rating or the speed at which worker is applying himself for carrying out the job and the degree of difficulty associated with the job which is being done. Synthetic rating is a very simple method because in this method the time for carrying out a particular job is determined like the time study, and the time required actually for carrying out a particular job is compared with the already available time values in the data handbooks. So, the time available from the handbooks is used to compare the actually time being taken by the worker for carrying out the job, and this comparison gives the synthetic rating of the worker. One by one, now all these rating methods will be covered in detail. Pace rating: under this system, operator's performance is evaluated by considering his rate of carrying out the job. The study person measures the effectiveness of the operator against his concept of the normal performance and then assigns a percentage to indicate the ratio of observed performance to the normal performance. So, from the time study person's concept of the standard of performance, he compares the performance of the operator and assigns one percentage, which will be indicating the way by which worker is applying himself to carry out the job. Speed rating, pace rating is also known as speed rating, and which indicates the time that how operator applies himself while doing the job. The mainly the time study person judges the operator's speed of movement or the rate at which he is applying himself while doing the job. In other words, how fast operator performs the motions while the job is being done during the study. In Westinghouse system of rating, this method considers the 4 factors for evaluating the operator's performance, and these are skill, effort, conditions and the consistency. Skill is about the ability of the operator to follow the instructions clearly and accurately and so as to complete the job, while effort is about how much effort and how up to what extent the body parts are being used while performing the job, the conditions in which work is being done and how consistently he is performing the job is also analyzed to arrive at the rating of the worker under the Westinghouse system of the rating. The skill may be defined as a proficiency of an individual in following the given method, and the skill is demonstrated by the coordination of the mind and the hands, how he applies himself using his thoughts and the body parts for performing the job. A person's skill in a given operation increases with the experience of experience on the job, because of increased familiarity with the work brings the speed, smoothness of the motions and freedom of freedom from the hesitations, and these factors in turn helps to decrease the time required for carrying out the job with the increase in experience on a particular job. So, skill of the person increases with the experience due to the various factors associated with the prolonged operation by the worker on a particular kind of the job. Westinghouse system lists the number of classes of the each factor. Each of the above 4 factors like skill, effort, conditions and the consistency are classified in 6 classes of like poor, fair, average to the excellent. So, these 6 classes each factor is categorized into the 6 classes which and these classes are used for rating the performance of the worker with respect to the each factor. For instance, the classes of the skill are poor, fair, average, good, excellent and the super skill as given in table. Here the table will be shown in coming slides, and each of these 6 classes are further allotted 2 degrees, means one is upper degree and another is lower degree, means the skill say of the average will also have 2 degrees of the higher side or the lower side. The time study person evaluates the skill displayed by the operator and puts him in one of the 6 classes, and also takes the decision regarding the degree in which that class falls, higher or lower. Normally 1 is allotted for the higher and 2 for the lower. As equivalent percentage value of each class of skill is provided in table, and the rating is translated into the equivalent percentage value, which ranges from plus 15% for super skill of the higher degree to the minus 22% for poor skill of the lower degree. These values of the rating factors for skill can be seen in this table, where super skill being given code of A and having 2 degrees A1 and A2, upper and the lower, and then here you can say 0.15 for super skill, and for poor also there are 2 degrees, the lower is 0.22 and upper one is 0.16. So, here these are in increasing order of the value which is being allotted from poor to the super skill, and the operator's performance is just on the basis of the skill, and that is then one class is allotted to him, and further in that class 1 degree is allotted. In that class he is on the upper or the lower, his performance is corresponding to the upper or the lower degree, and accordingly numbers are assigned. The effort rating includes the extent up to which the different body parts are being used and the kind of efforts being used by the operator during the operation. These there are again 6 classes which range from poor, fair, average, good, excellent to the excessive, and each of the class will be having further 2 degrees like higher degree and the lower degree. So, according to the class of the effort rating, here you can say excessive and the higher degree will be assigned a value of 0.13, while the poor of the lower degree will be assigned of value of minus 0.17. Similarly, the values are also assigned for the conditions of working. The poor conditions of working or ideal working conditions, and accordingly the values are assigned for say 0.06 value for the ideal working conditions, and for poor working conditions minus 0.07 value is assigned. The same way consistency is also rated, workers performance is also rated, worker performance is also rated in terms of the consistency, and there are 6 classes from poor to the perfect, and the perfect class is allotted 0.04, while the poor class is allotted minus 0.04. And so here we can see the rating for the effort, skill, conditions and the consistency are obtained from the table for a given performance of operator while doing the job, and by algebraically combining the rating with respect to the each of 4 factors, final performance rating is estimated. So, algebraic sum of the values of all these factors which have been rated by the time study man is used to find out the performance rating of the worker. In objective rating, as I have said, that the pace rating and the degree of difficulty related with the job is used to arrive at the performance rating of the worker. In this system, speed of the movement of the body parts while doing the job and the job difficulty are rated separately, and the two estimates are combined into a single value. The rating of the speed or the pace rating is done in the same way as described earlier for the pace rating, while the rating of the job difficulty is done by selecting the adjustment factors corresponding to the characteristics of the operation with respect to the number of factors, the way by which different body parts are being used while doing the job. So, the adjustment factors for degree of difficulty involves the consideration of the many factors, the way by which the body parts are being used, and the amount of the body used, the foot pedal use, bimanualness, eye hand coordination, handling requirement and the weight to be handled during the work, or the resistance which will be encountered by the operator during the work. These degree of difficulty is obtained by categorizing the work of the operator under these headings, amount of the body used and eye hand coordination and all these factors while doing the job. The Mundell and the Danner have given a table for table indicating the adjustment factors for the effect of various difficulties when job is carried out. So, these values are obtained, and the algebraic sum of those values is used to arrive at the degree of difficulty. So, here for all those 6 factors the job is analyzed and the different values are assigned along with the resistance in carrying out the job or weight which is to be handled. So, after obtaining the numerical values related with the degree of difficulty in carrying out the job, the rating factor of the worker is obtained by clubbing it with the pace rating. For an operation under study, a numerical value for each of 6 factors related with the job difficulty assigned is obtained, and algebraic sum of the numerical values of the job difficulty adjustment factor is estimated, and then rating factor for the operator can be expressed as rating factor equal to R equal to the P into D, where P indicates the pace rating factor which has been assigned by the worker, has been assigned by the time study man to the worker, and D is the degree of difficulty related with the job which has been obtained in terms of the job difficulty adjustment factors. Product of these two gives the rating factor to the operator in the objective rating method. Synthetic rating method is the last method which is being covered for rating the performance of the worker. In this method has the two main advantages, that it does not rely on the judgment of the time study person, and it is very consistent because time values are obtained from the data handbook, PMTS data bank, and the time study is actually conducted for time study is actually conducted in the conventional manner to find out the observed time in doing a particular job. In synthetic method, the time study is generally conducted for manually controlled elements which may be selected from the entire work cycle, and then time values are obtained from the PMTS tables, and the actually observed time values when compared with the time values obtained from the PMTS table are used to arrive at the performance rating of the workers. The time for these elements determined from the PMTS table and compared with the actual observed time in order to estimate the performance rating factor. The performance rating factor is given as a ratio of the time obtained from the PMTS system and the time actually observed. So, the ratio of P by A, where P indicates the predetermined motion time for an element, and the A indicates the average actual observed time of the time taken by the worker in carrying out an element during the time study. So, the ratio of the time obtained from the predetermined motion time study tables and the actual time is used to calculate the synthetic rating performance of the worker. It can be seen from this example that if the work cycle has been divided into the 8 elements and the time study has been conducted, the average observed time for elements are as under, where say the elements from 1 to 8 are there, and out of these 8 elements the 7 elements are carried out manually. These are indicated by the letter M, while the element third is carried out by the machine indicated by the letter P, and for carrying out this element the powered system was used, and the time taken for this is 0.3 minutes, while all other elements carried out manually, and the time study indicated the time for the different elements. It can be seen the average actual time for the different elements 1 to 8, except the time for the element 3. Time for actual time for element 3 also has been given, but it is done with the help of powered system. So, if we see further, M indicates the manually controlled elements, P are carried out using the power controlled systems. The total observed time of the work cycle which is obtained from the sum of the time required for completing all the 8 elements is coming 2.32 minutes. Suppose if we select 3 elements 2, 5 and 8, and which are done manually, and the time values also obtained for these elements from the PMTS table, and suppose if we get these time values for the same 2, 5 and 8 elements from the PMTS table, then these time values are say corresponding to say for element number 2 it is 0.145, for element 5 it is 0.255, and for element number 8 it is 0.145. So, these time values are compared with the actually observed time values for these 3 elements, and if we see the rating factor for element 2 is determined from the ratio of the time required time obtained from the PMTS table and the time which is actually required for carrying out the job obtained from the time study. So, the ratio of the 2 gives the rating factor for element number 2. In the same way, rating factor for element number 5 and the rating factor for element number 8 can be obtained, and we can see the rating factor for element number 2 is 90.62, rating factor for element number 5 is 98.08, and the rating factor for element number 8 is 96.66. So, average of average rating factor for of all these elements is obtained. The mean of the rating factors of selected elements say comes out to be 0.9 95.12%. Say approximately it is a performance rating for a performance rating of the operator by the synthetic rating method for element 2, 5 and 8 is coming 95% is the rating factor that will be used for all elements of the work cycle. So, what is assumed that the 95% is the rating factor by which operator will be working when he will be doing other manually controlled elements also. So, the normal time of the cycle can then be calculated as given below. Here in this table shows the element number, its type, the actually observed time and the performance rating factor which has been allotted. 95 is the average rating factor for the manually controlled elements. So, all the manually controlled element will be indicated by the performance rating factor of the 95, while element number 3 which is carried out using the power controlled system has been allotted performance rating factor 100%. So, it is important to notice that the powered systems, the elements which are being carried out by the powered systems are not rated and they are always given 100% rating. So, to arrive at the normal cycle time, the 0.95 0.95 that is 95% performance rating is multiplied with the actual observed time values for the 7 elements, and 100% performance rating is multiplied with the actual observed value for the powered controlled element, and the sum of these gives the total normal cycle time of the 2.22 minutes. It should be noted that power controlled elements or machine paced elements are always given 100% the rating factor. So, we have seen so far in this presentation that there are different methods which are used for rating the performance of the operator, and these rating factors are subsequently used to calculate the normal time and arrive at the standard time. But to determine and to estimate the standard time, in addition to the normal time, allowances are also added. Allowances are frequently added to cope with those situations which will force the worker to stop the work and do other things, and which may be the part of work or which may be very important, because of which the work is being stopped. So, the factors which are beyond the control of the operators, to take into account those factors, some of the allowances are given. So, when readings of any time study values are taken over, because why allowances are given, that we can see here from the fact that when the time study is conducted, it is normally conducted for a very short period of time, and normal time arrived therefore does not include the unavoidable delays and the other legitimate time lost, for example, in waiting for material, tools, equipments, periodic inspection of the parts and interruptions due to the legitimate personal needs. So, there are various factors because of which work may be stopped by the worker, and if those are not included, then the whatever normal time is there, these extra time requirements will not be part of the normal time, and therefore, to deal with this situation where the normal time has been obtained which does not include the factors due to which work is to be stopped. So, to deal with these factors some additional allowances are given. It is necessary and important that time study person applies some judgment or allowance to compensate for such losses, so that the fair time standard is established for a given job, because that when normal time is obtained it does not include the factors because of which the work is stopped. So, to take into account those factors some allowances are always given to compensate such losses, so that the fair time standard can be established. Allowances are generally applied to the total cycle time as a percentage of it. So, the allowances are normally expressed as a percentage of the normal time for carrying out the one cycle of the job, but sometimes these are given separately for machines as a some percentage, while for manual activities as a other percentage. However, no allowances are given for the factors which may be within the control of the operator, or the factors which are avoidable. The factors which are not avoidable, only those are taken into account while identifying the percentage of the allowance to be given. Most of the companies allow the following types of the allowances to their employees. Some of them are constant allowances which are given for personal needs and to overcome the basic fatigue, while the delay allowances are given for dealing with the situations because of which work is stopped due to the lack of material, lack of availability of the instructions or the job, or the lack of availability of the machine itself due to the breakdown. Personal allowance is given to fulfill the personal legitimate needs of the body and to overcome the basic fatigue which will be occurring during the job. Normally 5% allowance is given for fulfilling the personal needs, and the special allowances are also given by the organizations, and these are decided in such a way that the operators and the workers or the trainees can have the reasonable level of the earning for fulfilling their daily life requirements. So, if you see this block diagram, how we arrive at the standard time after adding the different types of the allowances. If we see here, the allowances are added to the normal time to come up with the standard time, and these allowances include the personal need allowance and the basic fatigue allowance, which are the part of the constant allowances. Variable fatigue allowance is that which will mainly occurring in the cases where very heavy work is expected to be done by the worker during the operation, while unavoidable delays delay allowance is allotted to deal with the situations which are beyond the control of the worker, and the special allowances are given in form of policy allowance or the rework allowance. The allowance which is allotted, the first one is the delay allowance. This type of allowance is given to the operator for numerous delays and interruptions that he experiences during the day or during the course of work. These interruptions include interruptions from the supervisors, inspectors, planners, expeditors, fellow workers, production personnel and others. This allowance covers the interruptions due to the following factors also, like the irregularities in the material or the defective material. Due to the defective material, the processing is not being carried out, or the difficulty in maintaining the specifications and the tolerance, like machine condition is poor, that is why it is taking long time, or interference delays where operator has to attend one or more machines at the same time. The fatigue allowance is the another one which is given to the workers to overcome the fatigue which is caused by the work during the work cycle. This allowance can be divided into the two parts. One is the basic fatigue allowance and the variable fatigue allowance. Basic fatigue allowance is given to the operator to compensate for the energy expended for carrying out the job and to reduce the effect of the monotony, and this can be treated as a constant allowance, while the operator who is doing light work and under the sitting conditions and good working conditions, it is normally given as a 4% of the normal time sufficient for the basic to overcome the basic fatigue, and the magnitude of the variable fatigue allowance given to the operator depends upon the severity of the conditions in which he has to work during the operation. Severe conditions force the operator to take early breaks, and that is why under the very bad working conditions the fatigue allowance can be as high as the 50% of the cycle time. So, depending upon the severity of the conditions, variable fatigue allowance is fixed. However, lot of bargaining between the labor unions and the management also takes place in identifying the extent of the fatigue allowance which is to be allotted. The fatigue allowance fatigue is caused either due to the physical efforts being made by the worker or the kind of the mental strain in which he is working. In both the cases, fatigue is experienced by the worker, and whatever is the cause of the fatigue, it will be decreasing the output of the worker. So, for to accommodate this reduced output of the worker due to the fatigue, these fatigue allowances are given. The major factors that cause more than just basic fatigue includes the severity of the working conditions in terms of the noise, illumination, the heat, humidity, and the kind of the nature of the work which is to be done. And the work can be seen in terms of the posture required for carrying out the job and the kind of the muscular efforts to be made for doing the job and the degree of difficulty associated with that. So, for identifying the extent of variable fatigue, these factors should be taken into account, and at the same time nature of the work should also be investigated to see what kind of posture, muscular exertion or the degree of difficulty is associated with the job. Personal allowance is mainly given to compensate the time spent by the worker in meeting the personal needs, for instance a periodic break in production routine. The amount of personal time required by the operator varies with the individual, and it has nothing to do with the kind of work which he has to do. It is seen that workers need more personal, some of the workers need more personal time compared to the others. In general, if heavy work is being done under the severe conditions, then the workers need more personal time compared to those who are working under the normal or ideal working conditions. The amount of this allowance can be determined by all daytime study or by the work sampling, and the most of the time the 5% allowance of allowance for personal needs is given, which comes out to be the 24 minutes in 8 hours shift is considered appropriate. Some of the special allowances are also given by the organizations to their employees, and these are mainly given in such a way that the operators can earn the reasonable amount of funding, so that they can support their lives. Some of these allowances are policy allowance, a small lot allowance, training allowance, and the rework allowance. The companies as a policy many times decide to give an allowance to provide satisfactory level of earning for the specified level of performance under the exceptional circumstances. So, as a policy, organizations decide that some allowances is to be given to the workers, so that they can earn enough to support their lives, provided they are up to a specified level of performance. This may be allowed to the new employees, physically challenged employees, or the workers who are working in the night shift. The value of the allowance, this allowance is typically decided by the management. The small lot allowance is the one which is allotted to the workers when workers are supposed to carry out the variety of the jobs in a day, and that is why if they are not able to get expertise and a sufficient experience in carrying out the job, then obviously they will be taking longer time to complete the job. So, taking the longer time will reduce their output, and which can also reduce their earnings. So, this allowance is given when the actual production period is too short to allow the workers to come out of the initial learning period, and when an operator completes the several small jobs on different setups during the day, an allowance as high as 15% may be given to allow the operator to make normal earnings to support their lives. The training allowance is provided when work is done by the trainees to allow him to make the reasonable earnings. It may be a sliding allowance which progressively decreases to 0 over a certain period of time. If the effect of learning on time is known, then the rate of decrease of the training allowance can be set accordingly. The rework allowance is provided on the certain operations when it is known that the job which will be produced of a particular standard or on a particular kind of system are going to be spoiled due to the factors which are beyond his control. So, under these circumstances where some of the qualities which are very difficult to achieve, or the systems are such that some of the works products are going to be rejected, under those conditions the rejected works or products will be reworked by the operator. So, whatever time is being is taken to rework those rejected products is allotted as a rework allowance. So, the time in which the spoiled parts in which the spoiled parts are reworked is converted into the rework allowance, and the decision regarding the percentage of the allowance to be given to the workers is taken by the management with the assistance of the specialists and consultants in the field, and also through the negotiations between the management and the trade unions. And the ILO, International Labour Organization, has also given its recommendations about the magnitude of the various allowances which is to be given. Now, we will see one case study where if the time being taken by the workers are too much and the allowances are also of the different types, then how it can affect the standard time required for carrying out the job. In making in a time study of a laboratory technician performing an analysis of processed food in canning factory, the following items were noted down for a particular operation. If the technician's performance has been rated at 120% and the company policy for the allowance stipulates to the 13%, then how we can arrive at the normal time and determine the standard time. If the watch reading shows that if it is considered that the readings above the 50% of the average and below the 20% of the average are considered abnormal, then those readings are to be discarded for arriving at the normal time. So, if the different runs are carried out and the time required for carrying out those runs is evaluated and measured, and here the first row indicates the number of runs and third row also indicates the number of runs. In total there are 24 runs, and the operation indicates the time being taken for carrying out those runs. So, here if we see most of the runs take 20, 25 or 15 to 25 minutes range of the time, while the run number 11 is taking the 40 minutes, while other runs are in general in range of 15 to 25 minutes. The average time of the all elements can be obtained from the total cycle time and the number of cycles which are being used, and we can see that it comes out to be approximately 20 seconds. If you have to discard the values greater than the 50% of the average time and below and the 25% below the average, then accordingly we have to calculate the values 1.5 times of the average and 0.7 times of the average. It comes out to be 30 seconds and 15 seconds. So, accordingly we have to see the data once again to see that how many time values are falling beyond the 15 to 30 range. So, here if again we scrutiny and check the table values, we will notice that the 40 second value is falling beyond this range of 15 to 30 seconds. So, here by discarding that value of the 40 seconds for one operation, again if we calculate the average, then it comes out to be 19.2 seconds. Here we can see the same thing, that the table indicating the time values for the different runs, and that for run number 11 the time values are value is 40, which is which need to be discarded as per the condition imposed, and that is why it is required to recalculate the average observed time value, and this average observed time value can be used to calculate the normal time with the normal time, and that can be obtained from the product of average observed time and the rating factor allotted by the time study man, and which has been 120% for the technician. So, normal time can be obtained from 19.2 into the 120 divided by 100, that is the performance rating, and the normal time comes out to be 23.04 seconds, and the standard time then can be calculated using this equation, and where in addition to the normal time allowance is also incorporated, and then we get a time value of 26.5 seconds. So, here we can see if the performance rating value has been given and the observed time values for the different runs has been given and allowance which is to be allotted has been given, how can we arrive at the standard time. Now, I shall conclude this presentation. In this presentation, I have mainly covered the different techniques of the performance rating, and we have seen that the performance rating is an important factor and the important step in the time study for arriving at the standard time value, and for arriving at the standard time value we have to add the allowances with the normal time, and the why the different types of the allowances are to be given, what is the rationale behind the different types of the allowances which are generally allotted, those things we have discussed in detail. So, thank you for your kind attention.